So I'm going to show you some of the audio equipment that I use that's connected to my computer that enables me to do what I do in the way that I do it. As I always say, these are my choices of equipment. It works for me. They're not the only choices. There's many choices out there. I mentioned in the last video that any computer that you've probably got probably already has the basic facilities for working with music and audio. So you'll probably already have the connections to be able to plug in, to start with, some loudspeakers so you can hear the sound from the computer, a microphone so that you record either your voice or the sound of your guitar or whatever it is, your ukulele, into your computer, and probably also a headphone socket as well. That might be combined with the speaker output, but it depends on the system you've got. So the basics are already there in terms of the computer company has already provided you with those things. So, you know, with that said, if you didn't already own anything to do this, you'd need to get some speakers. So probably, again, I like using that 10 quid figure, but you could probably go on Amazon and buy a set of computer speakers for 10 quid or even less now that have come from some factory somewhere and will let you at the least hear the sound that's coming from the computer. So that's going to be the cheapest way to do it. In terms of headphones, you usually get some little buds free whenever you get your mobile phone. You could use them. Normally they have a little mic attached to them as well. Chances are you've probably got those things if you own a mobile phone. If you don't own a mobile phone, then one of those cables, again, I'm not going to use the tenner expression, but you could probably get one for about 2 or 3 quid. So let's say for less than 15 quid, if you don't already own the stuff, you can get started doing audio on your computer. Now, whilst that will get you started, and it's better than nothing, and certainly when you're just starting out, if you're somebody that watches my channel and is interested in what I do, or somebody else's YouTube channels, or you're a musician in general, you want to start, you know, thinking, oh, I've seen people using the computer to do music with, how do I get into that? This might be interesting in terms of stepping up the quality and the flexibility and the overall, I don't like to use the word professionalism. I'm not a professional musician or a professional producer, but the stuff that I've got makes my job so much easier and makes the quality so much better. And in my opinion, I don't think it's really that much of an outlay that I've made for it. So let's assume you've had a go at using your mobile phone cable and your £10 wank tech speakers from Chengzhong Speaker Company or whatever, and it's not working out very well, and you want to go for something a little bit better. Why would you want to invest money in extra equipment when you've got something that does actually physically work, but maybe you're feeling as though it's not as good as it could be? There's 3 main reasons that I have decided to use dedicated equipment. The first one is sound quality. Now, when I say dedicated equipment, I mean an audio interface like this one. This is one that I use. I'll give a bit more detail about it in a moment. But that's basically handles all of the sound that comes into my computer and comes out of my computer. So the first thing is sound quality. When you invest in something like that or similar, you will notice the sound quality goes up 10 times from what's coming out the normal connections on the back of your computer. The second reason is the connections. Now, I mentioned already, I'm not going to go through them again, the connections your computer has on the back of it. That's all well and good, but in terms of if you're working and trying to record sound and things like that, a dedicated audio interface, as these things are called, will give you better flexibility in the connections. And I'll show you that on this example again in a moment. The third reason, it's a little bit difficult to explain, so I'll try and do my best to keep it as short, concise explanation as possible, is something called latency. What that means is a delay in processing time. Some computer engineer might come in the comments and say, no, latency actually means. But to explain it, that's what it actually means. So in practical terms, what do I mean? So if I'm recording my guitar, I plug my guitar into this computer and I've got my speakers connected. There's a backing track that's got some drums and some bass on already, and I just want to play my guitar parts, some chords or whatever on top of that, something dead simple, doesn't matter what I'm playing. But if the latency is too big, what happens is there is a delay between me playing a strum, let's say, and me hearing it through the speakers. Again, if I was singing, it would be the same. Let's say I've put my guitar lines on. We all know that I can't sing, but then I wanted to put some singing on top of that song as well. So now I want to listen back to the bass, the drums and the guitar, and I want to sing on top of that as well. The latency means that there'll be a delay between me singing la 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 and it actually coming through the speakers or the headphones. Now that can be really, really off-putting when you're trying to do a performance, because it puts your timing out. You start listening to what's coming through the speakers instead of what you're actually doing. So latency or delay in recording is your enemy when you're trying to do music production. Now, you'll have a certain amount of that with your basic computer equipment if you're using those sockets on the back of it. And I would say that when you get a dedicated audio interface, one of the things that you will find is your latency comes right down, because the companies that make, certainly the higher quality ones of these, spend a lot of time on the software and the optimization of it to remove that latency so that there's very little delay. I've sometimes used a computer without these and measured it, and it's been maybe, let's say, 400 milliseconds. Now, milliseconds doesn't sound like a lot, does it? But 400 milliseconds, 400 is nearly 500. 500 milliseconds is nearly half a second. So that can be really, really off-putting in terms of trying to get a good performance. So they're the three reasons why you might want to consider using a decent quality. You have to buy the best one out there, which probably costs thousands and thousands of pounds, but a decent quality one instead of what the computer comes with. Now, with that said, I'll have a quick word about the interface that I've got. It's a fairly modest one. This particular, that's my audio interface. It's only a little box, connects to my computer. This particular model is called a FOCUSRITE SCARLETT Solo. It's by a company called FOCUSRITE. Now, they're well known in audio equipment fields. If you put it in your search engine, FOCUSRITE, they've been producing this sort of gear for ages. So I know I'm onto a winner when I'm using established equipment that's been going. Apart from that, this is my choice. There's hundreds and hundreds of these different ones you can choose depending on what your requirements are. But that's what I've gone for. This particular one, the basic specifications of it is it's USB, so it just plugs into my USB port. It's got 2 inputs for sound and 2 outputs for sound. The inputs I use for recording sound, and the outputs connect to my speakers. It's as simple as that. The inputs, and this is where you get the extra flexibility with the connections that you don't get on the back of your computer. You can see, hopefully, I've got a microphone input which accepts an XLR microphone cable, so I can plug a microphone directly into that without needing any extra adapters or anything. Microphone in, good to go. On top of that, don't want to get too complicated, but some microphones, particularly recording microphones, they're called condenser or capacitor microphones, they need to have a supply voltage to them to work properly. This interface has got a little button there, I think it's there if I can find it, that enables it to run those type of microphones as well. So all bases covered. Next to that, I've got another input that's called instrument line in. That's where I normally plug my guitar in. It's designed so I can plug my guitar straight in without need for any other preamps or gear like that. I can plug in and I'm good to go. Each one of those inputs on the interface has got a little volume control, so if whatever I'm plugging in is too loud, I can dial it back a little bit. You won't see it now, it's not plugged in, but it will either light up green if I've got a nice healthy signal, or if it starts getting too loud, it lights up red, so I can just dial that down a little bit so I don't get any nasty distortion or clipping on my signal. So it's really superb for that. The no innuendos please, but the big knob that you see here, that's your main volume control knob for it, which is really great. Rather than having to go into my mouse and slide a little slider up and down, I can just control my volume there. That's a super useful feature. Got a headphone output socket on here for using my headphones, which is great. It's also a full-size headphone socket, so you can use normal audio headphones rather than the ones with the little tiny sockets on them. And finally, it's got a little switch there that's called direct monitor. That's related to the latency. I'll probably talk about that more later in a video about software. But what that does, if you're still getting too much latency, even with one of these, it might be that you don't have a very powerful computer, like an old laptop or something like that that you've had for years and years and years, that's just not powerful enough. That switch enables you to, it reroutes the sounds that are coming in straight to the output so that you can hear it without the delay. I don't use that because I don't need to use that, but it's a really great feature to have so that, you know, like I said, not everyone can go buy a brand new computer. So if you're just using what you've got and working with what you've got, that's a really super useful feature. There's not really much more to this than that. On the back panel, there's only really a couple of things to mention. A couple of outputs for the speakers on there. So the 2 channels coming out of this, one goes to my left speaker, one to my right speaker, and a USB connection that just plugs into my computer. And that's it, it just sits on my desk and does its job. Does its job really well. This one I bought second hand from one of those second hand electronics shops that starts with C and ends in X. I use them quite a lot because they give you 24 months warranty, so I really quite like them. But again, I'm not promoting them, that's just where I happen to get it from. And it cost me, I think, about 50 or 60 quid. So again, it's not peanuts, but if you work with audio and do a lot of music stuff, that sort of money, nowadays you can't even go out and have a night out with 50 quid. So it was a good investment for me, and it's been brilliant so far, and I think it's solid enough. Metal, you know, no cheap plastics, nothing like that. It's going to keep on working great for me. So that's my audio interface. That's the main audio component of the sound that comes out of my computer and goes into it. If I wanted to, I could just plug my headphones into there and I'm good to go. I don't need anything else. Even if I just have my little headphones that came with my phone, I can use an adapter and plug those in. I've actually got some better quality headphones, Sennheiser headphones, that I can use to listen to it, and again, good headphones make a difference to the sound quality. So with that, I would be good to go just with that. I do have the speakers that I've got connected up to it, and in the next video I will talk a little bit about those speakers and why I've decided to use them. In the meantime, enjoy.